Hello, everyone, and welcome to our set of conversations regarding EV battery manufacturing. This time, we will be discussing a topic that is very close to me, which is the actual manufacturing automation of the processes. So, I think we have many different reasons why automating manufacturing makes sense. But could you say, in your opinion, what are the main reasons to automate this kind of processes?
Hello again, Piotr, and thank you for this question. So we used to see in the past that when the manufacturing lines have been designed, it was not really taken into account the fact that those lines maybe require some modification in the future, modification to meet some evolving customer needs. And now we see that those customer needs are evolving quite quickly, changing frequently. So it means that those production lines will require those modifications, flexibility to be adapted, to modify your production, adjust it, and so on, to better respond to those customer needs. So the point is that we have to bear in mind and take really into account this necessity when designing a new production line. So to have this flexibility to adjust it when necessary.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but since we are discussing the EV battery manufacturing, is this type of manufacturing in any way special? And are there any considerations here that you would like to mention, keeping in mind that we are talking about automating that process?
Yeah, the first important point to bear in mind is that a battery cost approximately, so there are debates, but approximately between 35 and 45% of an EV, of an electric vehicle. Which means that if we are able with the production to reduce the manufacturing cost by any way, you will improve your competitivity because the battery will be cheaper, and also it will be the same for the car maker. So that's why it's so important to pay attention on this, manufacturing of the battery, because the cost is so important for an electric vehicle. So we see also that the demand for those batteries is on the rise. So that's why it's important to be able to assemble and to build those production lines as fast as possible, and in the same time to have the ability to scale up, because we will respond to current needs. And as I mentioned before, we need this flexibility to be able to increase the production in the future if necessary.
So in other words, we could say that creating an automated production of the batteries, you have full control over the battery costs. Can we say that?
You can say that as long as you are able to have the control of the cost of the battery, then you know what are the elements, machines that consume the most, and then you know where you can act to reduce this cost and consequently to reduce the cost of the battery. So that's definitely one point. So having those information will give you better, control over the total cost of the battery. And then we intend to go to the direction when we know what is the, individual cost for every pack you manufacture.
Then I would ask one more question regarding the automation of those processes. I think you are spending quite a lot of time at the customer sites and so on. So could you share the most recent game changer in this area? So have you noticed any technology that is particularly useful for EV manufacturing?
Yeah, so in my experience, talking about those projects, in most of the cases, our customer take into account the CapEx, so the initial investment. It's still not so frequent that they really look into the operational expenses, the OpEx side. We as Mitsubishi have seen that on this particular area, when talking about the manufacturing, the production, we are still, trying to reach the zero defects. But it's impossible to say that there will be zero defects. You still have some defects, etc. The point is that, are we currently able to identify those defects? If so, to also identify why it happened and to find a solution and to ensure that it will never happen again. And here we have a dedicated system, recorder unit, when you have a standard camera from the market, and then you can record what happens on the manufacturing line. So then it will give you the possibility to see what happened in a specific moment when you had, for example, an issue. It also gives you the possibility to have what we call virtual playback. So you can also play before a few minutes, or depends what you recorded, what happened before, what happened after, and what was exactly this moment. So thanks to this kind of solution, you are really able to target the issues and the root cause of these issues, which means that I was talking about the OPEX, you can easily identify it, put necessary corrective actions to ensure that it will never happen again.
Mm-hmm. So I would summarize it in a way that the one thing is to automate the process of assembly, and that's obviously giving huge benefits either way. But then on top of that, you can create even higher control over the process, for example, by observing what was happening to the process thanks to the system recorder, for example.
This is correct. This is why I really emphasize those two parts, that initial investment is important, but also the cost of running the machine. It's probably as important and even more important, because here, when you have a direct impact, you can drastically reduce also the cost of the battery.
Very interesting point, Lucas. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Piotr. See you next time.